We have 26, 29, many participants already.
Great.
Hello, everybody. Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you're at. We've got, it's climbing still, 70-ish folks in attendance, and we're expecting 200 or so. So we're going to give it maybe 2 or 3 minutes. In the meantime, Jen, would you like me to start the poll?
That would
In
be
the
great.
meantime, while we're waiting, yeah, drop in where you're from in the chat. And we're going to put up a poll question around your first bike adventure. And we would love to hear about what got you started while we're waiting. And if answers come up, I'll know that it worked. Hey, it worked.
That's great. All right. Maybe next time I'll figure out music.
Yeah. Oh, I just saw Keith Reed from Denver. Shout out Keith Reed. We met at a brewery in Denver. Nice fella.
Great. Oh yeah, look at everyone. Stephen Powell, all the way from New Zealand. Thank you. All right.
We had 71 people answer the poll. Thanks for everybody who answered the poll.
Yeah, and thank
We're
you.
slowing down on attendees joining. It's been 97, 98. We're in the 100-ish range for a while now. So Jen, I'm going to pass it over to you whenever you're ready.
Sounds great. Yep,
Kick us
let's
off.
get started. Welcome, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you are. Thanks for joining us today. I am so excited to be here and talk to everyone. And I'm going to walk you through a little bit of what's been happening with adventure cycling. We're going to start with celebrating our impact from 2023 and then get into our focus for 2024. If you have questions along the way, just put them in the chat. Jess is going to be monitoring the chat, and we'll circle back at the end and do our best to answer whatever questions that we can. So I am going to jump in and get started. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jennifer Odell, the Executive Director. And joining me today is Jeffrey Mizell, our VP of Programming, leading our routes, our advocacy, discovery, and experiences work. Jess Zephyrs is here as well, our VP of Marketing and Communications, in addition to overseeing our publications, website, media, campaigns, all of those things. She's also helping out with our webinar today. And the rest of the team is here in attendance as well, just not speaking in front of all of us today. So thank you for being here. So I want to get started by just talking about why we're here, right? Our mission. We inspire and empower and connect people to travel by bike. And we think everyone needs the opportunity to experience the joy of bike travel, whether it's bike packing, bike touring, something in between. That's why we're here. And I wanted to say, first of all, thank you. Thank you to everyone who is here today and is part of our community and has been supporting us. Your support provided access to bike travel for over 17,000 riders and community members last year. And I just wanted to say thank you so much. So to celebrate this, what this looks like in breaking it down with our programs in our routes work, which is where we provide the knowledge to people of where to bike travel, We provided over 15,000 cyclists with maps to plan and go on their own adventure. We also updated over 5,700 miles of the Adventure Cycling Route Network. And we launched 12 new short routes in 6 geographies across the country. And finally, we also designated 750 miles of the USBRS, bringing us to just shy of our $20,000 mark, $20,000 mile mark. So hopefully we can get over that milestone this year as well. Also celebrating some of our work in 2023, our discovery programming, which we sometimes call innovation and discovery. You've also heard this called bike overnights in some of our programming materials. This is where we provide riders the skills and knowledge and confidence to learn how to bike travel to begin with. And this year we served over 360 riders with our bike overnights programming, which included direct support to nonprofits and other groups around the country to host different bike overnight events. We also worked with 4 ambassadors this year to help grow our community and talk more about bike travel and share their experiences and just help us reach and connect with more people. And we also introduced some new skill building workshops this year, and you're going to hear a little bit more about this later, but we taught 20 new riders how to pack and prep and get ready and all the things that you need to do to get started. And I'm really excited by where some of this work is going to go in the future. And then finally, our experiences programming, which many of you probably have some firsthand experience with. This is where we provide riders with the confidence to bike travel. It's the convenience of having a trip already planned out for you. And this year we provided almost 2,000 riders with the opportunity to experience a bike trip, whether it was an intro tour or a long weekend or an epic. So really excited to celebrate all of the work that we accomplished in 2023. So thank you for helping us make that happen. So what's next? Well, I'm excited to start talking about what's happening this year. And to kick things off, I want to talk about how we're going to continue to provide resources and experiences and tools and support for people who already have the skills and confidence to bike travel. So those of us that have done this a few times, but we're looking for that next big adventure. So route development is one of our program areas, and this is where we design, we research, we vet new routes, and really excited to share that we are beginning new route research so that we can identify 3 regions for some week-long loops, and as well as a vision for a new epic route, which we hope to launch in 25-26 timeframe. All of these opportunities will include more gravel off-road terrain in those routes. And so we're excited to get started on that work this year. Route preservation is another one of our program areas. And this is where we provide updates to the existing adventure cycling route network to address service updates, safety concerns. This year, we will be updating 20 segments of the adventure cycling route network. And we're starting work on creating a rating system for riders that will include things like route difficulty and other information along the route. We will also continue to offer a great selection of curated merchandise for you. So branded items with the adventure cycling logo, as well as some specialty items for bike travel specifically, especially things that are harder to find in your typical online store or retailer. And then finally, our guided experiences. We are, well, this number is out of date since we put this together. We're now 68% filled with our tour signup. So if you have not signed up for a tour, please get on our website and see what we have to offer this year. We'll also be adding 2 gravel trips later this year, so more to come on that. That was not part of the original schedule, and we're excited to bring those in shortly. So what I'm also really excited to talk about is other work that we're doing in 2024 to help people discover bike travel for the first time. And it's, since COVID, we haven't been out too much in the community. So I'm really excited that we are going to be increasing our events and outreach and getting out and building connections in the community this year. As part of that outreach work, we're also going to be not only introducing people to adventure cycling, our mission, our programs, but also telling the story about why bike travel matters, how bike travel benefits our mental, physical health, how bike travel fits into the alternative transportation movement, and how bike travel benefits our local economies. We also just launched a new website platform that will allow us to update and expand our library of resources. So today, most people go to YouTube or the web to find resources and tools, and we have a lot of great materials, but we're going to update and expand those digital resources for people this year as well. And then the other 2 areas of our programming that is really focused on helping people discover bike travel are some educational programming activities in our short routes. And I'm going to pass things over to Jeffrey to go into more detail around those because we've got some exciting news for you. Jeffrey.
Thanks, Jen.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for being here. I just noticed this as I was looking through all of the comments. I've done now 4 of these webinars, and every time, like, I don't know anybody's name, and Hayden's in the background like, oh, I know him, or so-and-so, we've been riding together. And I finally saw one, Tim from Sunnyvale, California. We went on a ride together, and I can finally say, oh, I know that member. So it's not just sort of like a random guy up here talking. At least somebody out there knows me. So shout out Tim, Sunnyvale, California. Yeah, so we are launching, hey, Tim, a couple of new programs this year. And like Jen said, there are multiple visions for what we're bringing to the bike travel community. And it can be sort of broken down in these 2 ways that Jen just did. What we're doing to serve existing riders, established riders, people who want tools and support or ideas for new adventures, and reaching a new group of people who aren't familiar with bike travel, or, were on YouTube and their friends sent them a video of somebody racing the Great Divide and said, hey, wouldn't this be crazy? And they're like, yeah, no way I'm doing that. And then we are we're the bridge between wouldn't this be crazy to we're getting on our bike and we're going out and riding. So the way that we're breaking that down, and these 4 new programs fall particularly within the educational type programming that Jen was talking about. And then we'll talk a little bit more in detail about the short routes program and some of our other route development. I believe there's a slide for each of these. Is that right? There is. Look at that.
Yes.
So adventure grants, and this kind of goes back. Actually, do you mind going back, Jess? Sorry.
There's a bit of a delay.
Is that possible? Great.
Yep.
This also is a great time as we have begun to solidify our strategic vision for the next 5 to 7 years and really identify what our programming is going to be over that time. Some of these things you will have heard about. So you've heard about ambassadors, you've heard about mini grants, formerly known as bike overnights, formerly known as short trips initiative. All of that is the same thing, because we have been testing these things over the past 2 to 3 years, and now they are sort of codified into this strategic vision of where we're going. And we have given them, these very cute on-brand names: Adventure Council, Grants, Rides, and Camp, to make sure that we are very clear about what we're doing in each of those. So this next one is going to be about Adventure Grants. That was formerly known as mini grants, formerly before that known as bike overnights, and even farther back known as the Short Trips Initiative. So adventure grants, this was sort of our foray into supporting emerging riders, we call them, or people who want to become bike travelers, with direct financial assistance, because We weren't doing on the ground in-person delivered programming from adventure cycling. And we have found that there is a significant need and interest from particularly smaller community-based nonprofits around the country that we can support with big impact and relatively low financial need, because the dollar amounts are, you know, substantially smaller than running our national organization. So last year we supported more than 250 individual riders, particularly riders who we don't generally think of whenever we think of, you know, when you think of the beginning of adventure cycling and you see the pictures on the wall in the office of the Trans Am. The groups of people that we are supporting, I'll go into a couple of them here, are, for example, Langford Elementary School in Austin, Texas. Langford Elementary School is a Title I school in Austin that we have now been partnering with a local nonprofit for a couple of years to deliver multiple skill-based clinics, culminating in a bike overnight trip to McKinney Falls State Park in Austin, Texas, from their school to camp and then back to their school. So an engaging youth in Austin, Texas. And one that isn't on here, but I'm particularly excited about because it's a group of very much emerging riders, but that we are wanting to make sure that we are attending to all types of riders, is the Metro Washington Association of Blind Athletes. We worked with them for the first time last year in 2023 to facilitate a grant that supported adaptive cycling gear and camping gear, and facilitated a bike overnight trip in the Washington, D.C. area for riders who are blind, in partnership with Seeing Athletes who are, you know, guiding them. So this is the adventure grants model of what we're doing, and it is going to continue into 2024. In 2024, we actually just closed our grant application cycle, and we have some really, we'll stay here for one more minute. We have some really exciting applications coming through this year. And if you read our strategic plan, or, you know, basically my work plan is what are we trying to achieve, you would have seen that it says our goal is to engage 350 riders in our adventure grants program, and we are expecting to support well over 600 this year. So we got really interesting applications from a much wider group of nonprofits across the country. And it seems that this adventure grants model of partnering with local nonprofits is really starting to hit a stride. And we expect to have really cool stories come out of it this year as well. The one thing that I'll say about this before we change over also is there's, of course, the impact portion of it. That is the most important, is the impact of the people that are riding their bikes. However, in all of these adventure grants, council, et cetera, programs, it also goes beyond that to sharing with their communities, to making it accessible in people's communities, and also to take the great, grandiose, scary vision of I can't be on my bike for 2 months and kind of boil it down into we can have really impactful, transformational experiences in our backyard. And that's what sort of all of these educational programs are geared toward. Now we will move forward to the Adventure Council. So the Adventure Council is one of our other educational type programs funded by so we have a partnership with a foundation in the Denver area called the Mortgage Family Foundation. They have supported us in digital route delivery, new route development, lots of great work at the Mortgage Family Foundation. And we were actually invited to participate in one of their programs called the MAP Fellowship, the Mortgage Acceleration Program. And what that does is partners established nonprofit executives and leaders with an up-and-coming nonprofit leader, in this case, Jen Odell, the executive director, and Raisa Ali, who works in Florida, actually, and to solve a pressing problem in that organization's life cycle. And where we were at was the problem that we were trying to solve was everybody who works at Adventure Cycling bike travels. Everybody who works here has experience, loves it, and is somewhat removed, at least, you know, people have varying levels of experience, but is in some way removed from the experience of being, I have no idea what I need and what I'm going to do. Similarly, across the country, there are varying levels of barriers or different barriers. I live in Colorado. I live in Fort Collins, Colorado. In my opinion, the best place to ride a bike in America. I can get from here to anywhere in town, never touching a road. That is not the case for people all over the country. So what a barrier for an emerging rider in Fort Collins might be is vastly different from a barrier faced in LA, where the traffic and the roads are much bigger, more cars, that sort of thing. We face different challenges. So we decided to work with the Mortgage Family Foundation through their MAP Fellowship, and we're partnered with Raisa, and our former program manager in the Innovation and Discovery Department, Brooke, worked together to sort of establish this council of people, of emerging writers. Emerging writer to us means a couple of things, but really what it means is somebody who is interested in bike travel, who doesn't currently bike travel. There are varying levels of description within there. We see sort of, I don't want to akin people to fruit, but low-hanging fruit, in terms of groups of people who are through hikers might be an emerging audience for bike travelers. They don't quite do it yet, but they commute at home and they like long distance bike or hiking. How do we get their voices in here to say like, hey, what are the barriers that you're facing in your area? Based on the geographic challenges that I just also sort of went into, we aren't trying to create a national council to solve the world's problems or the nation's problems. So this year we are standing up our first adventure council in the Rocky Mountain region, which really means like between here, northern Arizona to Montana. I mean, it's a big region, so I mean, even that is a little bit nebulous. But in and around this region, our first council, and they're going to act as sort of a consultative body on a lot of the pilot programming that we are proposing. So I'm going to go into some of the pilot programming on the next slide. And basically, as we're developing our programming, I know what I think is needed. And our current program manager, Ellie, knows what she thinks is needed. And our tours director, Sean, our experiences director, Sean, who has input. But like I said, we are all somewhat removed from the experience of an emerging writer. We're going to have this group of people who are able to say, you guys are right on it. This is the barrier that we face, and this program, is responsive to that. Or that's not a problem here. We don't need this. What we need is X, Y, and Z, so that we're making sure that we are really responsive to the actual on-the-ground challenges being faced by emerging writers. And then our goal over the next 2 to 3 years is to stand up these councils in regions throughout the country that will be representative of those specific groups of people. And leading us into one of our first pilot program, pilot program, educational type program delivered by Adventure Cycling. Like I said, as we've dibbled and dabbled and sort of dipped our toes into new programming and engaging new people, it has been primarily from a financial support perspective. And we're trying to continue that and also grow, hey, how do we directly interact with emerging writers as an organization, and what can we bring? Because as you know, many of you, like I think, well, actually, I think it was like 67% said a friend took me on my first adventure, but the number 2 choice was definitely took a tour. As you know, we have nearly 50 years. I saw many comments about the 50th anniversary of experience in this area. And we have a sort of a vast archive of educational materials that we want to be able to go out and sort of take to the streets and provides to people to say, hey, here is how we do this. So the Adventure Rides is going to encompass a couple of key areas. I'll talk mostly about the one that we're launching this year in 2024, but the areas of need that we see are, one, an intro tour obviously still has a significant financial barrier. And for example, our intro tour right now, our intro to gravel, is in Whitefish, Montana, which is kind of far away. You need at least a week off work. It's not the easiest route in the world. So how do we bring a lot of those barriers down to make it less of a time commitment, less sort of overwhelming financially, needing less gear? You don't need to travel. How do we bring it into neighborhoods to launch these workshops? Sorry, I saw my name in the comments and I got distracted. So that is going to be our first pilot for this year is a group of workshops within the Adventure Rides umbrella that we're going to be launching in 5 locations around the country. And they're kind of a re-envisioning of the intro tours or educational tours that we currently run, because those ones are excellent for teaching, and there are still barriers that model presents. So for example, our first one is going to be in June in the Colorado Front Range, delivered in Denver. And the model is over the course of several weeks to do, one night a week workshops. Say it's every Friday for 4 weeks, where you're able to learn how to pack a bag. We'll bring bags and bikes, how to pack it. On the next one, how to plan your route. On the next one, how to deal with safety issues, mechanical issues, how to cook our food in this. And on the final one, with the support of a leader, to actually go out and do a short bike overnight that is guided by adventure cycling. So it's kind of a mixture of all of our programming into one. We have our curriculum from the introductory tours. We have our sort of guided experience that we're bringing into it. We have our short routes, which are going to be discussed soon. And we're saying, how do we take all of this great content and knowledge that we already have and repackage it in a way that is financially accessible, because we can do this at a significantly lower cost. We can do it all the time. We're going to have routes all over the country to do this in, and it asks less of people. It's less of an investment to say, I need a bike, I need to fly it to Montana, I need to take the week off of work, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the entry point for the adventure rides this year. And our goal is to significantly scale those over the next 2 to 3 years. So next year, we want to have it in 10 locations. In the following year, between 30 and 40 locations around the country, doing these workshops. And like I said, taking it to the streets. A couple of other areas, which I won't go into as much on the adventure rides, but in the future, we see a need for an opportunity for educating for youth and families. So whether that is with cargo bikes or with kid-friendly routing or with kid-friendly educational models, and also the curriculum will obviously be a little bit different for the different needs of families. And finally, in the future, we do have a goal of engaging young adults, particularly education for credit models, partnerships with outdoor recreation programs at universities, and those sort of things for outdoor leadership. Those are sort of the areas, the bucket areas that we're trying to support with this adventure ride bucket, starting this year with the workshop model in 5 locations. And finally, short routes, which many of you are probably familiar with, at least because we have talked about it in the past. And our goal is to significantly ramp up the short routes offerings. I will talk a little bit more sort of holistically about the route offerings in general, but short routes particularly are meant to serve a very similar purpose. And that purpose is a lot of people don't live near an adventure cycling route network route, or certainly not the beginning or the end. Those epic routes take many, weeks or months that people don't necessarily have. And that is a barrier that people say, well, yeah, I can't take a week or a month off of work, but I do have a 3-day weekend coming up. So our goal with the short routes is to source from the community accessible 2 to 5 day routes in areas where we aren't currently serving. Right now, it's been metropolitan areas. That isn't necessarily a rule, but it is great because it allows people to go and explore in their backyard. We receive those from the community via submitted with Ride with GPS. So also contact me if you have any interest in submitting a short route. We would love to publish your short route for you. And then our cartographers do what they do best, which is vet it for safety, for services, for, Jen discussed our route rating system that is in development so that people know pretty much what they're getting into. And it does have the adventure cycling sort of eye for safety and accuracy and quality. Last year, there was an initial publish of 12 short routes. One more has been published since in Palo Alto, California, Palo Alto to Half Moon Bay. We've got a couple coming out and with an exciting partnership, which I don't know if we're teasing right now, or an exciting partnership with the East Coast Greenway Alliance. So obviously they are experts in their on their route path from the Florida Keys to Canada. And they are really keen on us supporting them, getting more people on the Greenway, and them supporting us, saying, hey, we are experts and we know great routes that can be submitted to the short route program along the East Coast Greenway Alliance. So more to come on that. And our goal for this year is to get up to 40 short routes, and in the next year have 100 short routes published across the country. Where am I on time? It's been about
You're great.
20 minutes.
Yep.
This is towards the end of my speaking. I realize that I can get a little bit long-winded, so I apologize for that. This slide is the more holistic view. It's not everything, but it does go beyond the emerging rider sense. So on the routes, like I said, our goal for 2024 is to receive, vet, and publish 40 new short routes this year. A little bit of a callback to what Jen was talking about. Identify the regions where we're going to start developing week-long off-road routes and begin research and development for a new epic routes to be launched in the future. This question is undoubtedly going to come up, and I saw it whenever you were talking about it, Jen, so I'm just going to go ahead and answer it. The question was, are you moving away from traditional road touring, pannier type touring to bike packing? And the answer is no, we're not moving away from it. However, we do see an important gap and an important level of interest in off-road. And when we say off-road, that does not necessarily mean dirt or gravel. It can be paved, just away from traffic type bike travel. So we're trying to create a more balanced offering of what we do offer, from traditional road touring to bike packing to off-road travel. And again, update and maintain the quality of the adventure cycling and route network that you all have come to know and love as a great resource. Yeah. For innovation and discovery, like I said, this now says 500. I don't want to shoot myself in the foot, but we're in the 600 range for new riders with our adventure grants and adventure rides programming. Stand up our first ever adventure council in this region here in the Rocky Mountains. And engage partner organizations for advocacy and route development. This East Coast Greenway test was a really exciting and promising first sort of effort into what does it mean to re-engage with national and local partners around the country for both new route research, safety, and advocacy efforts related to cycling and bike travel. Finally, experiences, and I don't know if we ever even really explicitly said this, but experiences, formerly known as tours. So if that was like, wait, where did tours go? That's experiences. Is complete of course, our 2024 slate of guided tours nationwide. Introduce a couple of new gravel tours in 2024, which we're really excited about. And along with our efforts to engage folks in a more accessible way that doesn't necessarily require the amount of investment that a sort of far away tour would be, is to create and pilot an adventure camp model of tours, finding a way to lower the access and the financial barrier to a guided experience with adventure cycling. And finally, I think that this is still me, the next slide, perhaps. This is partially me.
Partially you.
So I would imagine that most of the people on this webinar are familiar with adventure cycling, because as you all answered your question, you've been on bike trips. You know that the transformational joy that it brings to people. And we would just love to say, if you want to take a guided tour, you absolutely should. If our route information is really helpful, we are so happy about that, and we would love to continue to support you in that. And we hope that you will join us in our efforts to share that transformational joy with more people across the country. And would love to ask you to consider giving your supports to our ongoing campaign to raise $100,000 to be the Kickstarter for these adventure educational type programmings and our ongoing service to the established riders of adventure cycling.
Absolutely. And you know, we have 100-ish people live today, but a couple hundred that registered, and some that chose to watch this as a recording. And I just wanted to add that if everyone who had registered to be a part of this webinar today donated $100 with our matching support from our Trailblazer group, we would achieve our goal. So I just wanted to ask you all to consider contributing and supporting our goal for the campaign for this season. And again, we're so grateful for you all, and really glad that you are here, that you've taken the time to join us and listen to what's going on. We do expect to have a few more of these webinars throughout the year. And this summer, we will be spending some time talking about our new strategic plan and some additional thoughts for what else is going to be coming in the future, both from our programming as well as some potential partners and some exciting news around partners. Jeffrey teased one of them already here, but there are some other things in the works that we'll be excited to share more about in our next session. So for those of you monitoring the chat, there is a link in there to go to our donate page. And Jess, I will turn it over to you to see if there's questions that we haven't addressed yet that came in.
Yeah, we had some great questions come in. I'm going to read a few aloud. My apologies if I don't pronounce your name correctly. I just don't know everybody's name, unfortunately, but I'm so glad you're here so that we can get to know you better. Okay, so we had a couple of questions from Elizabeth Phelan and Drew DeMack about whether there are plans in the works for a 50th anniversary reunion or celebration of any kind.
I will say, yes, we are starting planning for that. And I do expect that in our next webinar that we'll share a little bit more about what some of those plans are starting to look like. Jeffrey, I don't know if there's anything that you want to tease about that yet, or if it's a little too soon.
I mean, from my perspective, and if many of you know, I was the director of development and I'm in this program position. I probably would have had a lot more to say if I was still in the development perspective, but we are expecting to do, of course, a huge celebration for the 50th anniversary. And there will be, from my perspective, I can say, a lot of programming to go along with it. That will be opportunities to be more than just everybody wants to. It's amazing to share stories. It's amazing to rekindle with old friends. It's amazing to celebrate the organization. But the best way to do that, in my opinion, is on a bike. So that's my goal for the 50th anniversary.
Great.
Jess, can I interrupt you real quick?
Yeah, please do.
Just wanted to let you know, Jen, that you're still sharing your screen.
What?
Thank you, Jen.
There you go. Yeah.
Thanks.
We have a question from Bradley Fisher. Love the grant program and the focus on writers with adaptive needs. Curious when the notifications to applications will go out. So I'm assuming, like, when are we going to decide the applicants and announce them?
Yeah, we are. I don't have the project plan in front of me, but it's definitely within the month of March. I want to. I'm getting some of our programs jumbled, but if Ellie were here right now, she'd tell you the exact date. It's within the next 2 weeks. We'll be having conversations. Some of the applications were yes, that's the one. We've done it before. We know that we want to do it again. Some of them we want to discuss. Hey, how is this supporting our mission? So we have some conversations to be had, but there will be final discussion on that within definitely the next 2 weeks.
Great. We have a couple of questions about the June workshop in Denver. One of the questions is from Charisse. Is it going to be online as well, except for the ride, of course?
This one will not be, and I'll tell you why. It's our very first one, and we want to make sure that we are sort of really dialed in on our curriculum, the way that we're delivering it, and we do have plans in the future for the marketing team to partner with us in the program team to turn this into either to come out and actually record the sessions that we're doing and participate, or to change these workshops into sort of a digital format. The first one, unfortunately, won't be, but in the future, that will be an offering that we have, or hopefully in a location close to you.
And relatedly, people are wondering how they might be able to sign up for such workshops.
You know, I'm going to ask Jess about that.
I was wondering if you would.
Jess is our lead on all things technology transition. As you all have undoubtedly seen over various emails, we are transitioning our website to a new platform, our database and CRM to a new platform, which is all going to make things much, much easier. And at this very moment, we are figuring out registrations for events and those sort of things. However, I will say it will be very clearly and widely published in and around the Denver area and on adventurecycling.org and our social pages. So you won't miss it when it is available. There'll be a link online to register through.
Yes, absolutely. Luckily, we have a little bit of time to figure out that registration process. We are going through this big tech transition. And so I'd say stay tuned for registration, and even more things to register, as Jen has sort of mentioned, throughout the year. Okay, let's see.
While she's looking, Jeffrey, do you have the results of the poll that you could share?
I do, yeah. So at the beginning, we asked a poll or put out a poll question on first adventure. How did you get started on your first bike travel adventure? 52% I was right. So 38 of the 73 who answered said with a friend. And I don't want to belabor the point, but this goes back to exactly what I was saying with it's more than just giving people the money to go on their first bike trip, but the cascading effects that empowering people to go and ride can have. Because obviously most of your first experiences was with a friend who said, hey, come along, I'll show you the ropes. And we want to be able to do the exact same thing. 6 of the 73, 8% were the brave ones and said, read an article and just went. So good for you all. 1 said took a class. Hopefully that'll be jumping up very shortly through our workshops. 16 or 22% said they joined a tour, and 16% said other.
Awesome. What would you have answered, Jeffrey?
I would have answered, well, I mean, I just complimented these people, so not to compliment myself, but I would have answered, watched a YouTube video and just went. So if she were here right now, I would say shout out Lael because her YouTube videos are very inspiring.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
So a question about sort of the new gravel experiences that were mentioned. And there was a new epic mentioned. So any more information about the new gravel experiences or new epic being referred to?
So those things are in development. What I can tell you is the timeline, and the first priority of those are the week-long loops for exactly the reasons that I went into in terms of time barrier and the desire for folks to have more off-road options. I'll just reiterate one more time that off-road week-long loops does not necessarily mean a 100% gravel or dirt or hard pack or gravel or anything like that. It can be just off of a road on a paved trail like the East Coast Greenway. However, those are our focus because of what we have been sort of informed of in people interested in these loop areas. The first, what we're doing this year is identifying regions and starting to go out there and start to do research for the loops. And in future years, it will be for the epic. We actually need to put a better definition on what epic means. It doesn't necessarily mean point to point. It doesn't necessarily mean 800 miles minimum. We haven't really said that. We should do a better job. But there is, as with adventure cycling's ongoing dedication to adventure and creating new things, we don't want to change that. We will still be offering long distance road or epic routes. But what I will say about that is an epic is significantly harder to do primarily off-road. You're going through so many different areas with different levels of infrastructure that kind of goes back to are you going away from road touring? In some instances, in some ways it's impossible, and in other ways we're trying our best to get people away from cars.
A couple more questions about the workshops. Could you maybe talk a little bit more about where we think those next geographies might be, where those workshops will be hosted, and what sort of fee might be associated as well?
Yeah, well, for 2024, I can start with those areas, the areas that we've identified, and a lot of this does have to do with where we have short route offerings. Because we want to have mapped routes that have been vetted by our cartography department to make sure that we're taking people on the best routes possible. So in the future, there'll be a much wider selection when we have our 100 short routes to choose from. And in this year, where we have the best quality and the most of those is we have one that we're publishing shortly here in the Denver Front Range, in the Austin, Texas area. In the upper Midwest, our goal is in the Milwaukee, Madison area. And finally, because we don't do nearly enough in our hometown, hopefully in Missoula. And there'll be also, of course, lots of fun to be done at the headquarters there. Again, our goal is to make this as low a barrier as possible. So we are kicking around the ideas of, well, of course, our first goal is, hey, what does fundraising look like to where we can offer this for free? Is there a grant out there that wants to get people outdoors, and can we offer this for free in an educational type of grant? That would be amazing. Next level is some sort of sliding scale based on ability to pay. And finally, a small, comparatively to one of our tours, a small fee associated with it. And what I will say also is we're trying to make it so that the barriers of equipment are also minimized. So yes, you'll need your own bike. Yes, you'll need your own helmet. But we're also trying to source, some bags that we can send from area to area, so people don't. If you're testing out bike travel, you can't really be expected to have 3 different types of bags and a small tent and a toolkit. So those sort of things that we're trying to reduce the barrier on, as well, to make it as inexpensive as possible.
Great. So last question that I have identified, I'm sorry if there are some that slipped through the cracks, but it's about our guided tours from Evan. So our offerings for guided tours for 2024 were reduced. Curious if that's a permanent change or what is the future for guided tours?
Yeah, so there were fewer in 2024, as you saw. We're offering 64 or 65 this year. I'm sure Sean is in the conference room. He's out. Somebody in the tourist department, experiences department, is in the conference room right now pulling their hair out. Mid-60s of tours this year. And that was plus a couple of gravel tours coming up in the future, and maybe a camp coming. So that last part is really the linchpin to answer your question. There were reduced tours to sort of change. Running 110 guided tours with a team of 4-ish or 5-ish is a big task, particularly when you're doing it from not the area where the tours are being run from. So to be able to free up the operational overhead, to be able to plan and try new things like the camp model that we're proposing, or introducing new gravel tours or developing new tours, we had to kind of free up some breathing room for the team. So what that looks like in the future is probably not going back to 110 sort of traditional tour departures. However, I do expect us to be offering more and a wider variety of different guided options.
Jess, thank you for monitoring the chat for us today. Jeffrey, thanks for walking everyone through the new programming that we're doing to reach and help teach new riders how to bike travel. Thank you, everybody who joined today and participated and joined the poll and put things in the chat. So excited for 2024 and so excited to continue conversations like this throughout the year and share more updates and news of what's coming and what else you can see in the future. So I just wanted to say thanks again. We appreciate you. As a reminder, just put a link in the chat to donate. Don't forget. And we'll see you all soon. Thank you. Have a great afternoon or evening or morning, wherever you are. All right. Take care.
Thank you.